Y'all, I'm just a girl in the world. I don't even know how many videos I've done on my soul's lore, but I have a podcast set with all the things, and I am unsure like how I'm going to set this up necessarily, but I wanted to show y'all because I actually bought this before I left America, and then I accidentally left it, which is probably good because honestly none of my stuff would have fit in the bag if I had this. And maybe the universe just knew I was coming back, but I've used it once or twice before, but honestly not in the way which it needed to be used. So yeah. But today your girl got some headphones. We in a booth right now. We in a booth. Like who said what? Wait, where, why, how? I don't know. But honestly, I don't even think that I don't know if this is gonna work. We're gonna see what happens. I'm gonna turn it on. Oh, wait. Where's the piece for my... This is it? Okay, well, that doesn't go in there. Hello? 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 Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Testing. Oh, it's a lot of static going on. Yes, sir. Let's get it. Ashkara. I wonder if this is actually like recording on the literal video. We're gonna see before we start this. And I am definitely unscrewing the wrong thing. Fudge. Oh my goodness. If y'all don't want to see all the we're finna see how we gonna set this up. But if y'all don't want to see all this motion in the ocean, then skip past it, because I'm not gonna edit this out, bro. See what we can connect this to. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Is there a baby crying? I can hear everything out these motherfuckers. Okay, no. Here? Nah, this one is my sting. I'ma hold it. We're gonna hold it for today because I don't know where. Yeah, I really don't want to stop the video because I want to check if the sound is working, like on my phone, because my phone is connected to here. But at the same time, I don't want to stop the video because I honestly like the raw and uncut vibe of me just like not stopping the video at all, like, you know. And I just keep going and being me and being in flow of natural existence. And I feel like that's been my main focus, like doing these videos, is being comfortable being seen, even though like nobody knows about this podcast. I guess like now it's a podcast because I have it set up. Slay. But it's been a podcast. But you know, just in general, my yap sessions, and you can hear so freaking much. Like, I wonder if I could dial that the fuck down. A bad bad. Now you hear the folks across the street and stuff. That's crazy. This is a good mic. I love this. But let me stop playing. But yeah, I feel like this has been a very important process of me being able to release the fear of being seen, like in my raw and uncut and authentic existence, and not really worried about polishing up a video, you know, or polishing up my appearance, because at this point, like, I've recorded myself in various states, and just being confident in my authenticity. So I really just don't want to cut the video, so I'm not going to do that. Excuse me. But anywho, welcome to Soul's Lore. This is my podcast where I just talk to myself about stuff that's important to me. A lot of times, I was just thinking about this, like, when I was in the house, and I was like, a lot of times my friends like say things such as like talking to me is like being on shrooms, because like I think of stuff in such a deep layered perspective, and I really don't know if I want to. Yeah, we gonna take y'all back. A lean back. But yeah, like, I feel like I oftentimes think of stuff in such a deep perspective, especially when I'm comfortable enough to share those thoughts with people, and it just would be a vibe. So yeah. But earlier, and honestly, this is not the point of the video. The point of the video, I will let you know, I will be recapping a few things that I hadn't recorded or shared, that I've been like processing emotionally in regards to my boundaries and just feeling pressure in life in general. So yeah. But anywho, I'm gonna yap about what I want to yap about first. The other day, I had told my friend that sometimes I think about stuff in posts, and I actually posted this on TikTok, but yeah, like I would randomly have a thought and it would come to my head like as a tweet or something, or as a caption. Especially when I was like in high school, I would always think of stuff as a caption, like, oh yeah, that E, and I would like write stuff down or whatever. But the other day, like, I was just thinking about something that was going on in my life, and I was like, put it in a tweet. Like, I put it as a tweet in my head, but I didn't like actually tweet it or whatever. And it was really funny because that was my first time like genuinely saying that to somebody and being like, is that crazy? And she was like, no, like, I do that sometimes. And I started reflecting because I'm like, bro, I feel like that is a clear representation of where our generation is. Like, the fact that we are thinking about things as social media posts, as content and things like that, is so interesting. And a lot of people say, or like older people, they may say like, oh, that's a representation of like bad or whatever. But like, we are adapting to the times, and I feel like that's very, very creative. Like, in general, me as a person, I think about life in so many different areas of art and film. Like, for example, right now, like, this is aesthetic, this is art to me, the way that I set up my phone and my camera. And I've had this vision for an extended period of time, and now I'm able to implement it and be satisfied with the position of the camera and really replicate the vision that I had for my life in this episode of my life. And in general, like, I view my experience in this realm as many movies, a general movie, but also just a show in general, or like a sequel, some sort of film. And the conversations that I have or the words that I use, I view them as scripts. And the people who are in my life, I view them as the cast. And sometimes I change up my cast, and at other times, like, my character may completely do a shift. And I think that's like beautiful, to be the creative in your life. I view myself as the director of my life, and as I flow in the world, I see myself like being a lot more creative, not only with the perception of my experience, but also with what I decide to do in this movie I call life. You know, like, at times I may do certain things, like with my hair, because I feel like that goes with the character which I'm embracing, or with my clothes, or, you know, with whatever vehicle or the places that I go to match a certain aesthetic that I desire to implement in my experience of my life. And I feel like this very much correlates to what I'm going to talk about with boundaries. So yeah, I just wanted to share that piece. There's also something else. Oh yeah, I was talking about how, like, when I hear certain sounds, like maybe the rain or something, I think of it as like background music. Or like if a car goes by and it makes a certain pattern when the wheels touch the ground, like, it's music to me. And how, like, I kind of whimsically, I have a whimsical perception of my experience of life, and at times it's higher than it is, other times it's like lower. But in all honesty, I feel like the lower comes from me not being like in my full dream state that I usually exist in. So yeah, but anywho, how does this correlate to boundaries? So I recently realized that I had a extreme discomfort with boundaries. And this kind of came up when first I had a interaction with a friend who, you know, like, we're not friends anymore, but she had said something to the effect of like me having an issue with boundaries. Like, anytime she placed a boundary, I would have an issue. And I was like, no, I don't. I have an issue with how you're placing the boundaries, right? And it came up again with another friend, and I specifically, like, overtly said, I don't like boundaries. And I was like, wait a minute, like, what do you mean by that? And sometimes when I hear myself say something that I like, yeah, do you truly mean that? I like kind of take it back. But I was like, no, you meant that. You said that with your chest. Like, let's unpack this. Let's journal and write about this, because what did you mean when you said you didn't like boundaries? Like, you were telling the truth, and I felt it in my heart. And I realized, like, I don't like boundaries. And I was like, we need to go back to the what's and the whys, and like, what's up with these boundaries? Like, do you even have boundaries and all these things? And so I realized that me fixating on how a boundary was implemented to me started from that being an issue when I was younger. Like, the way boundaries were introduced to me, they weren't presented to me as, you know, the customization of your life. And literally, that's what I was just talking about before, like the way you perceive life. And I truly feel like boundaries are a way for you to customize your existence within the world, your experience within the world, and for you to decide what you're willing to engage with and what you know, draw in, what kind of interactions you attract. And so this is after, you know, the whole spiel that I'm going to get into. And so basically I was like, what was I like? Oh yeah, so I was like thinking about how, like, when it started with me thinking about, like, you know, just playing with my cousins and stuff like that, and how, like, we would kind of just do little petty things, like, oh, you can't play with us, or like we would get upset, but like we wouldn't say the thing until it got to a certain level, like, of discomfort. Like, once we were like really angry, we were like, I'm not playing with you anymore, I'm so mad at you, you can't come to my birthday party anymore, you know. And I would feel like very isolated or something. Like, I would be like, dang, like, they don't want me to play with them, and da da da, and I'll just feel upset about the way that those boundaries were implemented. And so I would do a lot of things where I would release my own boundaries so that I could fit in. Like, if I didn't like a certain game, or I didn't like a certain, you know, like, we would play a lot in the pool and I didn't like the water, but they would get mad if I didn't play in the water, I would like release my issue with it being dirty or something just so I could fit in and stuff like that. And that in itself led me to even thinking about, like, how boundaries were displayed in my household, and how, like, I never really felt comfortable to have boundaries. And I started to really reflect, and I feel like I'm talking in circles, so I'm just gonna read, like, what I wrote and stop talking in circles, because yeah, let's see if I can find it. And I actually just recently shared this with my mom, which was an interesting conversation, but very much needed to exist in my truth. I love how this sounds in my ears. I'm not sure, like, if y'all can hear it like that, but whatever. Okay, so I wrote, when I was younger, the way people who I cared about set boundaries was not kind nor clear. I didn't really respect boundaries because every time I became hurt by the way that they were presented, either with yelling, rudeness, random shunning, or other unclear actions. Eventually, when people would overtly voice their boundaries, I would feel like I did something wrong. I would try to fix whatever it was that made them need a boundary, even if it was something within myself. I feel that this was the origin of me abandoning myself to please others. Excuse me. I abandoned traits, thoughts, opinions, and even habits that made me happy to accommodate others. I remember even being in trouble for having boundaries. And so a certain experience came up for me. Honestly, I feel like that's a little personal, but I'm not gonna like fully deep dive into it. But basically, when I met my younger sister, who has now passed away, Krista, she was my stepsister, and oftentimes, like, we would you know, hang out a few times, and eventually she started to come over and spend the night very frequently. But there were like little conversations in between, but not really like, hey, like how do you feel about this kind of thing, or more of this like existing in my boundaries in that moment. And so I wrote, she would be in my room and play with my toys, and even when we got older, she would randomly be in my space for weeks, etc. I would become upset, honestly, because my space had become sacred. My room was a safe haven to me. And my family always and still knows how much I value my alone time. I need and love time to myself because it's how I stay grounded. It's how I release other people's energy. And as an empath, that is very important. It's how I remember myself and maintain my authenticity. Now, when I was younger and in those moments, I feel like I would get in trouble for having that boundary of needing that space to recharge. And I wouldn't necessarily, you know, be perceived in a way that it truly was. Like, it would be things such as like, oh, you're being mean, or you're being rude, or you're being selfish, and things like that. But I genuinely didn't one have the clear communication of that integration of a new person in my life. But then I also felt like my boundaries weren't respected, and I kind of started to perceive it as like, oh, this is a bad thing within me, that I need space, or, you know, I have certain toys that I value more than others, and I have things to myself. And as I got older, I started to perceive myself as like, oh, I was selfish, or I needed to be selfless in order to be a good person, like to be loved and things like that. And I would genuinely relinquish so many parts of myself. And I think I actually like wrote something about that, but I don't know if we're gonna be able to find that right now. Yeah, some of it's like really personal, so I'm not even gonna like fully, everybody has their own wiggles and waves to go through it. But yeah, like I definitely did start to perceive myself as like a selfish person, or sometimes like a spoiled person, a rude person, a mean person, because I had boundaries. And those were definitely projections from the people who were in my life at that time. And as I grew up, I started to like relinquish all these like boundaries that I had, and it made space for a very chaotic experience, if I'm being honest. Like, not having boundaries, I had so much stuff, and to this day, like, I'm still cleansing out the so much stuff that I was like holding from other people and like putting up with it. Me as a person, like my own desired experience, like I probably would have never even engaged with if I had my boundaries and I didn't even allow it in my space, you know? If I was just like, you know what? No, I don't do that. No, I don't want to hug your energy off, you know? Or no, I don't have the capacity for this conversation, or no, I don't have the energy for this hangout, you know? And I think about like how that really transpired as I grew up, and like in, you know, romantic relationships, how I would like really just do certain things that I may not have had the capacity for, because that's what love is, or like that's what I was taught that love was. Or like even you know, maybe in friendships I may have been flaky because at time I felt like I need to overextend, and then I'll be overwhelmed and, you know, need to disappear oftentimes because I wasn't prioritizing myself or my boundaries. And yeah, I just think it's very important to really recognize that. And, you know, doing this shadow work, because that's what it is, it has been really, really healing for me. Really, really healing for me. Yes. And it led me to, and before I move on, I will like share my affirmations that I wrote to myself. But it did lead me to unpacking pressure, which we'll get into in a little second. But I wrote I know that it is now time for me to reestablish my emotions. And I scratched it out. I said my emotions and my boundaries, but then I said my relationship with my boundaries. I am safe to feel and create standards, expectations, and restrictions on the way people are allowed to interact with me. I love myself so much that I care about how I desire to be treated and how I desire to experience this life. I exist. I am safe to exist. I am safe to take up space. Other people's existence does not diminish the importance of my existence. I value my existence. I value my uniqueness. I value me. I will create new and revive old boundaries as I go about this life, because it is mine. And I just feel like that's beautiful, you know, to really dedicate myself to me feeling good in my life, because that is what creates a certain frequency. And I really did need to come back to that, because I've been like in like this wibbly wobbly state of like I'm figuring things out, and I'm picking up new spiritual tips, but I want to make sure that one, like boundaries, is something that's like truly instilled in me, because it's very, very important. It's just so important in my experience of life, I guess. And so eventually I was led to I don't even think I want to share this, honestly. Or like, I don't think I figured out how I want to share this, because we're just gonna let the words flow, because how I shared it before, I have unpacked it, you know, but just that writing there was too personal for me to even share, in my opinion. As I unpack boundaries, I realized without having boundaries, I felt so much pressure, because I was detached from the essence, or like my root in choosing my life, you know, like the power that I had over my life. And I feel like boundaries are power. And with that, I feel like I had, like I said, I let so much in that I felt pressure. Like I felt pressure to be perfect, to be smart, to be pretty, to get good grades, to, you know, console others, to be kind, to be honest, and, you know, be wealthy and look a certain way and act a certain way and engage people in this way and this way. And At times I relinquish the ability to be authentic, not authentic in the perception, the eyes of other people, but authentic to myself. And I remember, I'm pretty sure, like in another video I talked about like me existing within my flow of change in my emotions, like in my perception and my knowledge of just like, at times I may, you know, feel this way, but then I went and experienced this and now I feel this way. Or, you know, I once liked this, but then I experienced this, and, you know, I really don't know. I gained a little bit more knowledge and I don't like this anymore. Or I've just naturally evolved over time, and I may not be able to pinpoint the whys and the whats, but it's okay that I have changed and I've adjusted. And I feel like in that pressure, I had become very heavy, because it wasn't, how do I word this? It wasn't space for me to, because I keep saying the word flow, but it's like a visual that I'm getting at. Like boundaries to me are like these curve in this guide of like literal water. Like life is the water, experiences is the water, and these boundaries are like, you know, the land, which curbs and lets you know where to go and what avenues it can seep through and all these things. And since it was just like a broken dam, just all the water on me, it was very much like pressure. It was very heavy for me to be me and know what is me, what thoughts are my own, what experiences are, like, how do I feel about X, Y, and Z experiences? What experiences have I created based on what I genuinely desire, and what experiences I have created based on trauma became very clouded. And I think like with this layer of unpacking and healing, I found that there's like this melting pot of all of that, of like what came from other people's experiences or even their traumas, and what came from my traumas, and what came from who I authentically desire to be in my natural healed self. And it just became a melting pot of all these things, which created who I am today. And the other day I was just talking and I was like, I value both. Like, I feel like certain experiences I didn't deserve, I shouldn't had experienced, but I did, and I value who I am and who I became despite of. And yeah, on that note, we're just gonna leave it at that. Like, temperature check, a little check-in. I'm feeling good now that I've like done this video, because I've been wanting to do it for a little bit of time now. And you know, I always feel good when I record some content and be very like authentic in my own existence doing such. And I'm actually very excited to finally have my podcast set like within my hands, because it's been a minute since I've been waiting on it. And yeah, in this moment I feel at ease. So thank you for being a part of my ease and listening to me yap, because I feel like that ending part was a little bit wonky, and I didn't really think about like how I wanted to share, or how much I wanted to share of that experience. So yeah, I guess today what this helped me do is gauge how much of my personal life I would like to share, you know, via the internet. Honestly, I just like to hear myself on this mic, so I'm gonna go ahead and end this, because I'll just keep on saying things just so I can hear myself talk. But thank y'all for watching. I hope I pray that this touches someone's soul, as much as the unpacking of these thoughts touched mine. Thank you. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.